It's Ivy Slater, and you're listening to Her Success Story podcast, a show where gutsy businesswomen share their success journey. Hi, this is Ivy Slater, and welcome to today's episode of Her Success Story. I am so excited to be doing this legal series, and it's a legal series that we have not done this way ever in our 7+ years of doing Her Success Story. And we've done various legal series as well as different professional series over the years. This series is dedicated to the support a law firm can use to help them grow and scale. So it's all about resources. And I love it that it's all about resources. It's about resources for you. It is about insight for leaders of various different law firms. And trust me, if you don't own a law firm, everything we're covering in this series is applicable to everything you're doing in your financial companies, in your marketing companies, in your PR companies, your technology companies. I can go on and on and on. This is about business. We just hunkered down for the legal market because it's a way for you guys to see how this gets implemented. So today, I have a dear friend who has agreed to come on. It's one of our great male guests. Ryan Kimler is the founder of Net Profit CFO. He is also the host of the Net Profits podcast that he had me as a guest on. Ryan and I met a while back through networking and different things, and we've had numerous conversations about how to scale, the importance of numbers and data in a company and in your firm. He brings years of his accounting background and truly, truly high knowledge as far as finance and knowing your numbers. Everybody who's ever followed me or Slater Success and read anything, listened to my videos, I have said 1,001 times, numbers tell a story. Read the book. Read the storybook. So from when Ryan and I met, we have just kicked this off. And Ryan, thank you so much for joining me here today on Her Success Story.
Ivy, thank you for having me. I am really looking forward to the conversation today, and I'm happy to take the time.
Okay, Ryan. So let's start with, how did you get involved in a career around finance, accounting, and then why law firms? What brought this about?
Yeah, great question. So my background is accounting and finance. I have an accounting degree. I have a finance degree. And that really prepared me. That gave me 150 hours, which is what's required to sit for the CPA, which was what my original plan was. And when you're going to go and sit for the CPA, what do you do out of school? You go and work for a CPA firm. And so that's what I did. And that CPA firm happened to be the large majority of their clients were law firms, probably 80 to 90%. This was long before COVID. And they were working remotely before remote was really the cool thing. And we worked nationwide. We worked with a lot of law firms. And that W-2 job for me really introduced me to the law firm space. It's where I learned a ton about law firms and really started working with them as small business owners. And that's really how I got started in the space, was that job.
What drove you to go out on your own? I'm always curious about that.
Yeah. So that job, we were completely compliance focused. We were bookkeeping, general ledger accounting, tax preparation, right? Which is all the things that you do need from a compliance standpoint, but we were not focused on helping lawyers run their business. And along the way, had a couple clients really ask me, hey, we appreciate the reports that you give us. And I'm paraphrasing here, right? Because this was years ago. We appreciate the reports that you give us, but what would be really helpful would be if you could give us some advice on how to make our numbers better. And that really sparked a passion in me. And at the time, I was very young in my career. I had no idea the answers at the time, right? But that really ignited a fire in me that I've got to go find those answers and really be able to help lawyers with their numbers to grow their business. And so that's really part of what caused me to go out on my own. I will also say that the firm that I was at was not run very well, and I could see that operationally we were poor. And I like to say that I learned more about how I didn't want my firm to run at that firm than learn about how I did want my firm to run. And so I knew that I
Sometimes
want.
those are the best lessons we can have in life.
I
I have
agree.
I have to tell you, you know what? When you see what's not working and you actually say, "Gee, this isn't working and this is why this doesn't work, and I see a vision of how it can work and I'm gonna make that happen." That
Yeah.
knowledge is so imperative, and I'm sure you take that knowledge forward to your clients today because based on your past experience of seeing what's working and what doesn't, you're looking for both sides, what's working and what's not.
Yes, for sure. And one of the biggest benefits is when you have an experience like that, it's not on your own dime. I
Hey.
think that's really great for me. And so if you're a listener out there and you're working W-2 for somebody else and maybe you're in that situation, right? Be thankful that it's not on your dime and be thankful that you have that learning experience and opportunity before you go out and launch your own thing.
I happen to love that. So, as you've been growing your business and you're working with an enormous amount of law firms, that is your space. What are some of the things that you see consistently in law firms that we look for this because we know this always ends up being like a blossoming issue that if we can control it, we can create a financial flow, a healthy financial environment?
Yeah, for sure. So I would say the biggest thing, number one, before we actually get into like the operations of it, are the people that you have in your life, like the financial people. And today we're talking about resources, obviously. Like I find a lot of law firms that they don't have the right financial people around them to even give them the opportunity to read the financial story. So you have to start there and get the right people around you so that you have that capability. But then I'll get to more of where I think your question was directed towards, which is really, a lot of times, number one thing is just efficiency and procedures for how money really flows through a law firm. And this is really true, as you were mentioning, for all other kinds of businesses as well, how money really flows through the business from the time that you do the work to the time that you bill it to the time that you actually collect the dollars, right? And as a firm scales, what I've found is usually that timeline gets longer and it gets less efficient, which also means you're collecting dollars at a slower rate, right? And so, really focusing on how do we really direct our efforts towards shortening that timeline is really important. And then also, there's a lot of other things as you scale and grow and hire people. I mean, their efficiency is a big deal as well. And how do we make sure that, they're on track for where we want them to be, that they're doing what we want them to do, and that they're producing what we want them to produce? Those are the big things.
When you start a new client,
Yep.
is there, and I'm asking complete transparency, it's a true question, it's not a leading question. Is there a common red flag you see? Like, this is what leaders are not doing. This is not what managing partners are not doing. Like, is there something that's rather consistent or is it all over the place? I truly don't know. I'm curious on your
Sure.
perspective.
So, number one thing for sure is pricing and not having it right. And
Wow.
that there's a second item. So I would say pricing is number one. Number 1A, that kind of, there's an interrelationship of numbers here. Number 1A that goes right along with that is what your payroll costs are. So when your price too low, your payroll costs really become too much, right? And they end up sucking up a lot of the dollars that come in the door, which means low profits for the business.
And if there are low profits for the business, there is no money to invest to scale the company.
For sure.
And then you're also starting to struggle with meeting your overhead, which as a business owner, I'm going to use a really transparent word, sucks, is stressful. We could use the series of S words, right?
Yep.
It's stressful, it sucks, on and on and on, but it's what keeps us up at night when we are
Yep.
struggling with, gee, can we make payroll? Gee, we have a large overhead for this, and there is insurance, and there is, I can go on, we want to open another office, we want to invest in more people, right, where are we getting the capital? If your numbers aren't right going into it, you can't do any of that.
Yep. For sure. That's absolutely right. Right. And getting your pricing right, charging your customers the right dollars in order to cover all of the expenses that you have, plus produce some profits so that you can turn around and reinvest in the business. That's the only way that you're really going to stay in business and be consistent for a long period of time.
Exactly. And, it's interesting that you said number one is pricing. Last month, I was at a symposium, and one of the planetaries was all about pricing and pricing models. Okay. So you knew I showed up for that one.
Yep.
First
Good.
row, wanted to see what people were saying, wanted to see the different things. I know way too often we undervalue ourselves.
Yep.
And I see it surface in a few different ways from my perspective, and I'm curious on yours. And by the way, listeners, Ryan and I did no prep. This is just 100% of two people that said, Ryan, I really want you in this series. Jump on Zoom with me. I always do prep calls. We prep all these. Ryan is 100%. This is not prep. This is we're just talking about numbers. Like, Ryan, show up. Uh, so
Yep.
thank you for that. I know you're a professional. Um,
Sure.
so it gets me when I see undervaluing,
Mm-hmm.
number one,
Mm-hmm.
leaving money on the table, not capturing hours. People are not, even with all the AI platforms coming in, with all how much easier
Yep.
is in systems today to
Yep.
log your hours as you're working. People are
Yep.
doing it at the end of the day, at the end of the week, at the end of the month. And I'm like, you're leaving a ton of money on the table. It gets me crazy. I'm like, that's like
Yep.
taking money and taking a bonfire and just throwing it in there.
Yep. For
I
sure.
mean, ladies, listeners, I'd rather go shopping.
Yeah.
What are you looking for in the pricing piece? Because I know those are the two things that I tend to be very aware of. What are
Yep.
you looking for, and how are you working with your clients on helping them see things in a new way?
So when I look at the pricing piece, I look at it two ways. Number one, I start and I look at each one of our service and product offerings. And then I try to look at what costs are really going into that to put that on for and deliver for the client. And the other way that I think would be easier for the listeners and the business owners that we have in the audience would be to look at what's our end result, which is how much is payroll of our revenue, right? So Forbes small business did a small business study, and 70% of revenue was related to labor on average for most small businesses. I like to see that number in order to really have a successful business and have dollars for your overhead, for marketing, to reinvest and have profits. I like to see that number anywhere between 30% and 45. As a business owner, if you have financials, if you're working with a bookkeeper, if you have an income statement, you could do this on a 1 month time frame. You could do this on a year time frame. But if you add in your wages, your taxes, your health care, 401k if you have it, right? Add the things that go up into paying your people and divide that by your revenue to see what percentage you're at. There is a little bit of math involved. I know there's a lot of business owners out there that probably don't like math, right? Yeah. If you don't want to do it, maybe you can get your tax accountant to do it or something like that. But
If you don't like, I'm going to jump in right now. If you don't like math is a big part of running a company. You have to look at your numbers.
yeah,
I struggled with calculus in high school too, guys. I struggled with algebra also. I could do basic business math. I learned it backwards and forwards. And one of the way I learned it is by leaning into our accountant. Bring in the professionals who can walk you through and help you get comfortable around that.
yep. Yeah, and I think, you might even get to a place if you're working with the right professionals where you don't have to do that math. They can probably manipulate your reports to get all of those expenses grouped together right in one section. And then some accounting softwares will do that math for you and show it to you right on the statement of, well, your payroll is 45%, right? I think it's important side note on that is that should include you as the owner on salary as well. You've got to pay yourself a reasonable amount. And so that 30 to 45%, I'm talking, we've paid the whole business, right? Owner included, we've paid bonuses. If you're not able to achieve that 30 to 45% number, you're probably priced too low.
And I know I think about it, and this is just my methodology, and you're a professional in this area, is that gives us then a percent, right? Another 20-30% to sit in the balance of our overhead, which if we do have rent or insurances, travel, et cetera, marketing, all of that. And then you have that piece that you have is profitability.
Yeah, I mean, if your payroll is 45%, the other 55, as you just mentioned, 20 to 30 of it goes to your overhead and some marketing. And then the remainder is really profits for sure.
Why the two of us get along so well.
Yes. And obviously, you want to keep good attention to, what are my overhead costs and what am I investing in marketing and what are my returns there? Because if you can reduce that percentage, obviously you're increasing your profit percentage, right? But I think the anchor of it all and kind of the starting piece, if you will, is that payroll and what's really because by looking at that percentage, you're really looking at what's my return on my employees and my team. And it's important that you have a good return on their work and you're obviously paying
Absolutely.
them wages. Yeah,
Absolutely. Listeners, knowing these numbers, keying in on them is going to give you information on how to grow and scale. And even if you say, oh, I'm happy with being small, that's fine. That's great. You still should know these numbers because that's where your money comes in. That's what's going to give you that life balance, that wonderful, like build a business so we can have a wonderful life. Don't build it and then wait later and have a life. Do it simultaneously. And that gives you the resources. These numbers that Ryan is sharing, these percentages, gives you the resources to do that.
for sure. That is really important. I love your language around that, right? Don't build a business and wait to have a life. I think that's a great quote.
Thank you.
Of course. I do. I love it.
What has surprised you? What has surprised you in building out your own business?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Thanks.
You know, there's been a few surprises along the way. I mean, I think, well, some of the things that I've seen working with clients, I talked a little bit about in the beginning on, having the right people around you, right? And having the right experts and resources around you. And some of the things that have surprised me is, seeing a business that's been built to 3, 4, $5 million. And then I meet the financial people that they're working with. And it's nothing against those people specifically, but they don't have the tools and the resources that they really need. And I'm like, how in the world are you running a business that's doing $5 million a year in revenue and you get no reports and you're not looking at your numbers at all and you're not seeing finances at all and you don't know. I mean, like you could go and log into your payroll software and see how much you paid people last week, but like I've run into business owners that they only get financial reports annually, and that's right before tax time. And so like
I cannot imagine. I
I I
I
don't understand it. I don't understand it. And they're like, "Yeah, I look at the bank account and if I've got money in there, it's a good day. And if that balance drops, below like $10,000, then I better go get some work done or something like that." Right. It's like, I don't
Not
understand
the
it.
stress that drives.
Yeah.
It's stressful for me to as just hearing it. I think I was fortunate in my early days in running a company was I now I'm really gonna date myself. Um, but I will say it was in the olden days. There was no QuickBooks Online, there was no Clios, there was no right?
Yep.
And the accountant used to come in every month and used to open the big ledger books. And I used to roll my chair and I was like, "Can you explain this? Can you?" And I every month, like I had it on my calendar the day they came in and I would ask questions.
Yeah.
Um, and so the thought of not having the financial knowledge to make decisions complete transparency. I just made a financial decision for Slater's success in doing some investing for some future growth. We have a book coming out and stuff like that. And the first thing I did is I looked at our numbers. I looked at our projections. I looked at our pipelines. I looked at, right? I looked at our profitability. I looked at what we pay our people, right? And to hear law firms don't have those resources at their fingertips to make decisions gives me chills down my back, Ryan.
Like I had one guy tell me, and this is just straight up, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit because this conversation
Fair.
was a little while ago, but he was like, we've always grown, we've always taken on more cases, and when the team started working overtime, I knew that we had too much. I just went out and hired the next person. He's like, that's it. He's like, people, and this guy obviously, not risk averse, right? Willing to take the risk, right? He's like, people think about hires and they think, oh, I've got to go get an attorney and they're going to be $100,000, and they think I've got to have 100 grand, right? And it's like, no, you only need 2 weeks, right? Which is like 4 grand. So he's like, anytime the team got busy and they started working overtime, I just went and hired the next person, and we kept growing, kept growing, kept growing, kept growing. And he's like, now I got over 28 people, right? I think it was the number that he was at the time. And it's like, but no numbers, right? No, this is what my payroll cost me. This is what revenue I'm bringing in. This is what we're priced at. Like none of that. It was just, if my team's overworked, I go higher. That's it. Which to me is just crazy. Like wouldn't dream of it myself. Just crazy.
So then this is my next question. What tips or advice would you give leaders of law firms
Yeah.
as well as leaders of any company at this point?
Yeah.
No, and what tips would you share as a leader?
Yeah. Yeah.
As an owner, managing partner, CEO, I don't care what the title is, whether it's a law firm or any other business, because it's all applicable.
Yep. Biggest number one thing, hands down, without question to me, is building out your financial team and having the right people in your life for when your business grows. The reality is, I'm going to say 95% of business owners out there, you're not an expert at accounting. You're not an expert at finance. You're not an expert at the numbers. Okay. So there's really a team of 4 people that I think you need to put together and need to have in your corner as you grow a small business. And I'll go through them kind of in order. One is, number one, you've got to have a great bookkeeper, right?
Yes.
That keeps all the expenses, records everything. And at the end of the month, they should be producing financials for you, right? Your bookkeeper is not your top level of expertise. They're not like the most experienced accountant out there. It's more of a beginning level, but having that person on your team and working with somebody that, can put things in the right place is really, really important.
Love that.
Number 2 is a tax preparer, right? Just to be in compliance. I know it's not fun, right? But really a tax preparer for your business and your personal stuff so that you don't have any headaches there, don't have any problems. That's number 2. And those 2 people you should really hire for your business once you're at the 6-figure mark. Even 100K in revenue for the year. I mean, bookkeepers today, they're
Outsource
outsourced.
it.
Yeah, I mean, they're outsourced. You can pay them a flat monthly fee, and a lot of them, there's bookkeepers out there that probably specialize in your industry that have niched into one industry, so they're seeing they're seeing the same business type every day. Like there's bookkeepers out there and firms that work specifically with law firms, right?
Right.
And I know that that's the case with other areas as well, right? So those 2, you get to 6 figures, have that person. Third one I'm going to say is a retirement advisor. I'm not going to say a retirement planner. I'm not talking about a retirement person like Edward Jones or something like that just is pushing life insurance. I want an advisor that looks at all options, not just life insurance in the market, but all options for you for investing, and so you're set up to have a retirement. A lot of business owners miss that piece, but I think,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think once you get to the 6-figure mark, you should really start having that person, if you're going to start hiring after you get past the 6-figure mark, you're probably going to start like a simple 401k or something like that. You want that person in your corner that can help you administrate that.
Yes.
Last piece is your CFO advisor, which is really what my firm does. But I really believe someone that has an accounting or finance background that are making your numbers easy for you so that you can make business decisions based on your numbers. I really believe a lack of that position in the US today is the reason why we have so many failed businesses. Somebody to really help you drive profits, make sure you have enough cash flow, make sure you have enough money in the bank, and really help you achieve your financial goals as the owner. That's really what your CFO does. And again, I think, a lot of accountants, they go into the compliance side, not the advisory side, working with business owners on that. And I think if we had more accountants going into the advisory side solely, and that's what they were focused on, we would have less failed businesses in America today. That's what I believe. Small businesses.
I happen to agree with you spot on. We've never pre-discussed this. In the businesses I've touched in the last 17 years, in the businesses I've seen myself run, my family run, my friends, colleagues, businesses, it's the ones who had that person doing the strategic planning with them, the financial piece on how to run their monies, invest their monies, be profitable, maneuver and strategize financially, that have gone for the long haul successfully and profitably.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's important as you're putting together this team of people as an owner, right? I mean, you're investing in your financials, you're investing in your business, you're investing in your future. It's important to put the best people in your corner that you can find. And so I always tell business owners, talk to at least three, because what you'll really see, I think it's hard anytime you're trying to hire a professional that we don't know what's a good one, right? It's like when you go to your doctor, it's like, how do you know that they're good, right? How do you know, or if you had to have like a brain surgery, right? Like, how do you know that they're actually a good brain surgeon, right? Like that's really hard to judge. And so I always encourage my business owners, talk to at least three, right? Because then you can kind of look at each one and say, what did this person tell me that I didn't know, right? And really look and kind of evaluate them against each other and see which one you feel like is the best professional. Unfortunately, letters behind a name does not mean that they're an expert, does not mean that they're the best. To be like quite frank with you and your audience, I've talked with CPAs that don't know their stuff. Like just straight up should not be running their own business, should not be filing tax returns for clients. Like just don't know their stuff. And I'm not saying that that's
Right.
everybody, right?
Before we close,
Yeah.
is there one suggestion, right, or one tip that is a good question to ask?
Yeah. Yeah, I think
I just threw you so under the bus. You had no prep on that one.
I no, that's okay. I think the good question to ask there is, because again, it's not always degree, it's not always letters behind a name. I think trust goes a long ways. I think it's, do you get along with this person? Do they share your values, right? And how do you feel when you talk to them, right? So it's not, I wouldn't say that there's necessarily a
But
question
there's
to ask.
something I'm hearing you say about trusting your gut. Have
Yeah.
conversations and check in with your gut.
Yep.
How does that feel? How does that feel in your gut? Is this right? Is this a good situation? I don't know if enough information is out there about trusting gut instinct.
Yeah.
We're smart people.
Yes.
Check in with yourself for a moment.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. I think that's what it is really, how does it feel? What does your gut tell you?
I love that. Ryan, I cannot thank you enough for jumping in on this legal series, sharing your expertise and your insight on the strategies, the profitability, the tips you've shared on running a strong company. Listeners, you have questions. Ryan is a great resource. As you could see, we could keep going for another 30 minutes and then another 30 minutes talking about this, but I'm going to be conscious of keeping it to her success story 30-minute mark. So, Ryan, Thank you for joining me. Check out Net Profits Podcast, people. Ryan is a wealth of information in everything he touches. I'm going to say, you have questions, ask him. He's the nicest man. Uh, literally,
Thank you.
just gotten on phones and just like, hey, I got a quick question. That's who he is. And that's what I appreciate about you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And thank you for having me on. I mean, you're right. I mean, I love this stuff. I love educating business owners on this stuff. And yeah, I mean, happy to step in and help where I can. Thank you so much. And thank you for having me today.
Listeners, this is the time of the show that I will always say, take a deep breath in. Ryan and I talked about a lot. We covered a lot of information. Identify one takeaway, one aha or takeaway. Write it down. I don't care if that means jotting it in your phone or on a piece of paper. There is no judgment here. We all work our own ways. Then make a decision of what you're going to do with that piece of information. That's the key to growing, scaling, and staying in action, is making the decision when you learn something that's going to make an impact in your organization, what you're going to do with that piece of information. You have questions, reach out to Ryan, reach out to myself. If this episode was helpful to you, please pass it forward to others so it's helpful to them. Leave a comment. Let me know. I'm really curious. What did you take away from this? And what have you taken away from the legal series? Stay tuned. We have more great interviews to come. I'm really excited about this series. I'm excited about this is the first time we're doing it this way. So share with me your impact and what you've learned. Thank you. See you next Monday as we drop more episodes in your inbox.